In our headlines on this Wednesday, November 6th here on the Korean Peninsula. Polling stations have closed doors and ballot counting is actively underway over in the U.S. as Americans await the result of the presidential race to usher in the country's 47th administration come next year. Meanwhile, here on the local front, the Korea Development Institute maintains its pessimistic assessment of domestic consumption despite the ease in inflation, while acknowledging the positive momentum from ICT exports. And Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy reaffirms the presence of North Korean troops in combat on the battlefield, adding that this reality ushers in a fresh period of much uncertainty for the global community. We start over in the U.S., where Republican nominee Donald Trump has addressed his supporters, voicing victory of the 2024 election. Our foreign affairs correspondent Pei Eun-ji is standing by live on the line. Eun-ji, let's start off with the latest on the vote count then.
Sure, Sunny. Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump have picked up expected wins, and at the moment, Trump seems to be inching closer to reclaiming the presidency. Now, before we go into details, to give you a brief overview, the Electoral College, consisting of 538 electors, is distributed across America's 50 states and the District of Columbia, so a candidate must secure at least 270 electoral votes to win. As of 1:30 a.m. Eastern Time in the U.S. and 3:30 p.m. here in Seoul, Harris is projected to gain 214 electoral votes and Trump 247. Now, we're still waiting for the results from most of the 7 battleground states that are set to decide the outcome of this year's election. Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania are grouped as the 3 major battleground states in the Rust Belt region. They're known as the Blue Wall states as they were once known for their strong Democratic support. But in the 2016 presidential election, Republican candidate Donald Trump swept these states, propelled by the strong appeal of his America First policy, while in 2020, Democratic candidate Joe Biden reclaimed them all back again. Meanwhile, in the Sun Belt region, located in the southern part of the country, Arizona, Nevada, North Carolina, and Georgia are the key swing states.
Right. Eun-ji, how has Mr. Trump been faring in the battleground states this time around?
For now, Sunny, Trump is ahead in all 7 swing states. Almost all of the votes have been counted in North Carolina, and Trump has taken more than 50%, taking 16 electoral votes. This is the 3rd straight time he has won the battleground state. And Trump also won in Georgia, taking another 16 electoral votes. With Trump's victory, Georgia became the first state to flip from the 2020 results. This is a state where his campaign has been focusing on as a must-win after he narrowly lost it against Biden in 2020. So it's a major win for Republicans. In Arizona, half of the votes have been counted, and Donald Trump is narrowly in the lead with 50%. The winner of Arizona will be taking 11 electoral votes. Trump is also ahead in Michigan. 60% of the votes are in, with Trump in the lead with a little more than 52%. Over in Nevada, Trump again is ahead with 51%. 75% of the votes have been counted there. Trump has the lead in Wisconsin as well, with a little more than 51%. Wisconsin has 10 electoral votes, and almost 90% of the votes are in at the moment. And now finally in Pennsylvania, the most crucial swing state, Trump is projected to be the winner. Both candidates have been focusing time and funds on the state, as the winner of the state will take 19 electoral votes. Most of the votes have been counted there, and at the moment, Trump has taken more than half of the votes, making it another huge achievement for the Republicans. So Harris' path to the White House is growing less and less forgiving. As Trump leads in swing states, Harris' campaign says she will not be speaking on election night, as tearful supporters were seen leaving the watch party. The New York Times also says Trump has a 90% chance of winning the presidential election. Trump supporters were seen cheering in Georgia in the early hours of Wednesday morning as Trump was projected to win. After winning Pennsylvania, Trump declared victory. He's now addressing supporters at his campaign headquarters in Florida as we speak. But we'll still have to see how the final results turn out. That's all I have for now, but I'll be back with more updates in our later newscast. Back to you, Sunny.
All right, Anji, thank you for that coverage. That was our PNG with the latest on the U.S. presidential election. Now, the result of the U.S. presidential race also affects the fate of the Trilateral security framework involving Seoul, Tokyo, and Washington. That being said, our senior correspondent Oh Soo-young touches upon the prospects of the Trilateral partnership as observed by pundits here in the country. To take a listen.
Trilateral ties between Seoul, Washington and Tokyo must remain intact, regardless of who wins the presidential election in the United States. According to experts speaking with Arirang News, both presidential candidates, Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump, would be advised to maintain the three-way cooperation with its East Asian allies. The leaders of South Korea, the United States and Japan at Camp David last year agreed to jointly handle North Korea's nuclear threat, work together for regional and economic security, and collaborate on advanced technology. Experts say as the Indo-Pacific region continues to see geopolitical rivalry, maritime and territorial disputes, and a nuclear North Korea, a Harris administration would likely maintain and further develop the Camp David framework. But a second Trump term raises question marks, given the former US president's track record of scrapping agreements and dealing with countries on a bilateral basis.
Any rational person serving in a Trump administration would look to that and try to maintain that, try to keep it in place, try to strengthen it by any means possible. But once again, we go back to the traditional antipathy that Donald Trump has expressed towards alliances and alliance partners. And it raises some questions about whether the leader of that administration, the Trump administration, would try to ignore or undermine what has been achieved here.
Another risk factor is Japan's domestic politics, as the governing party there is likely to prioritise turning around its low approval ratings and Japan's sluggish economy. Still, analysts say South Korea's growing prowess in security and advanced technology makes it an essential partner.
Given South Korea's strategic importance in East Asia, it has become an indispensable partner for the U.S. and Japan in maintaining regional stability and countering threats from China and North Korea. South Korea plays a vital role, especially in intelligence in North Korea, and its strengths in semiconductors and military capabilities make it a crucial partner. The U.S. and Japan heavily rely on South Korea's cooperation in these areas, particularly in securing stable supply chains and leveraging South Korea's technological advances in semiconductors.
President Yoon Suk-yeol and new Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba agreed in October on the need to continue their three-way partnership. While Yoon's aides have also noted there is bipartisan support for the South Korea-US alliance in Washington and ongoing measures to institutionalize their cooperation with Japan.
Trump has his own very clear stance towards China. So therefore, if US, Korea, and Japan trilateral cooperation means something about countering China, the need for it will remain in place. And even though Trump comes in as the new president, the professionals who runs foreign policy and defense policy, even though we expect a lot of them to be replaced after Trump comes in, but those people who will replace the existing policymakers, even the newcomers, most likely will advocate the trilateral cooperation between South Korea, United States, and Japan to remain in place.
Regardless of who moves into the White House on January 20th next year, observers expect the three countries to hold a trilateral leaders summit by the year end, fulfilling their pledge to hold annual meetings at the top level. A South Korean presidential aide told reporters Wednesday that Presidents Yoon and Biden are firm on having a trilateral summit with Japan within the year, and the Japanese Prime Minister is on the same page. However, the time and location of the meeting would depend on the outcome of the US presidential election. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Now, while much global attention is on the result of the U.S. presidential race, many Korean Americans are applauding the first senator from their community. This as third-term Democratic Representative Andy Kim has won his bid for a seat at the U.S. Senate. On Tuesday local time, Kim defeated Republican Curtis Paschow in New Jersey. He is slated to be one of the 3 Asian American senators in office. Kim's victory was widely anticipated as the Democrats have maintained their Senate post in New Jersey since 1972. The Korea Development Institute maintains its grim assessment of domestic consumption despite the ease in inflation, while acknowledging the positive momentum gained from ICT exports. Our business correspondent Lee Soo-jin has more.
Ongoing limited domestic demand despite positive export momentum. This is how a major state-run think tank, the Korea Development Institute, evaluates South Korea's economy in its monthly report released on Wednesday. It's the 12th consecutive month that the KDI has maintained a pessimistic view of the economy's domestic demand, and once again stands in contrast to the government's assessment that it is showing signs of recovery. The nation's industrial output and goods consumption both fell in September. South Korea's industrial output fell 0.3% compared to the previous month, and the decrease comes after the country recorded an on-month rise of 1.3% for the first time in 4 months in August. And industrial production fell 1.1% on an on-year basis as well, which was largely attributed to lackluster production in the construction sector, which dropped by around 12% on year. And retail sales, which indicate trends in goods consumption, also declined by 0.4% on month after seeing a rise in August and fell 2.2% on year. This was mostly attributed to lower sales of non-durable goods such as food and beverages, as well as semi-durable goods like shoes and bags. South Korea's exports in October came to a total of $57.52 billion, up 4.6% from the same month the year before, marking the 13th month of consecutive on-year growth in exports. While the on-year gain was smaller than that of the previous month, this was mostly due to base effects, and robust shipments of ICT products led to the growth. By item, semiconductors, the country's largest export item, saw a more than 40% increase compared to the same period last year, maintaining an upward trend for the 13th consecutive month last month. And the total export value of computer products, including solid-state drives, also marked 10 consecutive months of growth. As for the global economy, the KDI assesses that steady growth momentum has been maintained, supported by policy rate cuts, with easing inflation, but downside risks remain due to trade disputes. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, U.S. tech firm Nvidia has raced past Apple to regain the top spot in market value fueled by global AI pursuit. Back on Tuesday, U.S. election day, Nvidia's stock price on the New York Stock Exchange rose 2.84% to close trade at $139.91 US. Its market value on this day soared to some $3.4 trillion US, surpassing Apple's $3.3 trillion US. Nvidia reclaimed the #1 spot 4 months after hitting it first this past June. In other news, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has reaffirmed the presence of North Korean troops in actual combat on the battlefield, adding that this reality ushers in a fresh period of much uncertainty for the global community. Our Park Gonu reports.
A new chapter of instability. That's what Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy called the current situation on Tuesday local time, after confirming that North Korean troops are seeing combat alongside Russian forces against Kyiv.
The first battles with North Korean soldiers open a new chapter of instability in the world. Together with the world, we must do everything to ensure that this Russian step toward expanding the war, toward real escalation, that this step of his becomes a losing one, for him and for North Korea.
This comes after the U.S. said on Monday that they believe that at least 10,000 North Korean soldiers made their way to the Kursk region of western Russia, which shares borders with Ukraine. However, the U.S. State Department on the same day did not confirm that the North had been involved in battle yet.
We continue to be greatly concerned about the partnership between North Korea and Russia. We expected that it was likely that they would enter into combat against Ukrainian forces, and if they did, they would be legitimate military targets.
Ukraine's defense minister Rustem Umerov said during an interview with South Korean broadcaster KBS on Monday that he believes up to 15,000 soldiers from North Korea are in Kursk. He added that many of those troops were yet to be involved in fighting, but would see combat in the following weeks after training. The minister also called for more support from South Korea and said he is negotiating a date to visit Korea with his delegation. Park Gon-woo, Arirang News.
And 13 UN member states, including South Korea, the U.S. and Japan, on Tuesday censured in the strongest terms North Korea's latest ICBM launch, which took place last Thursday. Addressing members of the media at the UN headquarters also on Tuesday local time, U.S. Delegate Robert Wood condemned the regime's most recent missile test, stressing its violation of multiple UN Security Council resolutions, with Pyongyang having tested over 100 ballistic missiles since 2022. The latest joint statement also noted that two member states, namely China and Russia, had refrained from condemning North Korea's ICBM launch. Over in Israel, internal conflict within the Netanyahu administration over the country's military mission in Gaza ends with the defense minister losing his post. Our Lee Seung-jae has details.
While war continues to rage in the Middle East, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Tuesday announced that he has fired Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. The Israeli leader pointed to significant gaps between the two.
Significant gaps were discovered between me and the Minister of Defense in the management of the campaign, and these gaps were accompanied by statements and actions that contradicted decisions of the government and the decisions of the cabinet. In light of this, I decided today to terminate the office of the Minister of Defense.
Netanyahu noted that while there was trust and fruitful work in the first few months of the war in Gaza, the last months saw that trust crack. The two have long been known to have been at odds, especially in regards to Israel's war efforts in Gaza. Gallant went as far as to tell a closed-door Knesset committee that the Israeli leader's goal of absolute victory in Gaza was nonsense. Replacing Gallant as the defense chief will be the current foreign minister, Israel Katz. Meanwhile, Israel continues its offensives in Syria on Tuesday with an airstrike on the Syrian city of Al-Qaysar near the Lebanese border. In a statement, the military said the airstrikes were conducted on Hezbollah weapons depot. It also marks the second Israeli airstrike in Syria in 24 hours, targeting what Tel Aviv claims to be Hezbollah sites. On Monday, the Israeli military said it conducted strikes on Hezbollah intelligence facilities. However, Syria's state news agency reported that the Israeli airstrikes targeted several civilian sites, causing material damage. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Back here on the local front, the National Theatre of Korea has on stage an immersive theatrical experience that energetically includes members of the audience into the performance. Our Ioni has this report.
After a 4-year break, the National Theatre of Korea is bringing back its Madangnori performance. Filled with energy and traditional Korean spirit, Madangnori is a traditional Korean performance featuring dance, music, and storytelling, which also shares important social messages.
The audience isn't just here to watch, they're here to participate. They join in just like actors on stage. Honestly speaking, I believe Madangnori is one of the most authentic and successful forms of Korean entertainment.
The charm of Madangnori lies in the connection it creates between the stage and the audience in a circular theater. The Badangnori performance originated from traditional Korean performance, typically held outdoors in a badang, meaning yard or garden, where the audience actively participates. It was later reinterpreted in 1981 with a modern touch, becoming the vibrant performance it is today.
Madangnori has to be choreographed so that the audience can understand the meaning from all 4 sides. The dance, music, and performance need to communicate the same message to everyone, no matter where they're sitting.
The National Theatre of Korea continued the legacy from 2014 to 2020, featuring popular characters like Simcheongi, Chunyangi, and Norbu from classic Korean folktales. A blend of satire and humor, the performance offers a clever and entertaining critique of society, making it a genre that can be enjoyed by the whole family, from children to grandparents. In light of the 10th anniversary, this year's production combines the best and most exciting scenes of these beloved stories into one lively, entertaining show. Even more special is the inclusion of the 3 original Madangnori stars, who have been performing for 30 years and are honored as living national treasures. The eldest actor Yoon Moon-sik, now 81 years old, reunites with this legendary trio on stage to bring joy and laughter once again. At the press conference held ahead of the show's opening in a few weeks, he expressed his excitement at working with younger talent and hopes that generation will continue to carry on and preserve this tradition for the future.
With the talented young performers we have now, you'll see a much more advanced show than ever before. Come and see for yourselves. I'm sure they'll take what we've started and make it even better. I think this will be my last performance, so I leave it in their hands.
A 54-show run at the National Theatre of Korea's Haneul Theatre from November 29th to January 30th, 2025, offers a nostalgic return for longtime fans and a rare opportunity for younger audiences to experience legendary performers live on stage. As the actors say, all it takes is an open heart. Just come ready to laugh, clap, and be part of the fun. Lee, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you the latest stories from around the globe. We begin today in Spain, where at least 89 people remain missing after torrential rain last week triggered flash floods in the east of the country, killing over 200 people with more feared dead. Amid ongoing rescue and recovery efforts, Spain's Superior Court of Justice in Valencia stated on Tuesday that the 89 confirmed missing only include reports of victims whose families have provided biological samples and personal data for the identification of their relatives, and that many more remain unaccounted for in the official numbers. Authorities also said that only 133 out of the 217 officially confirmed deaths from Valencia, Castilla-La Mancha, and Andalusia have been identified so far. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez on the same day announced an aid package worth some $11.6 billion to help the victims, which will include around $916 million in cash handouts to local businesses and workers affected by the disaster. Aerospace company Boeing, which had its production halted by a 7-week strike, has finally come to an agreement with its employees after the labor union agreed to a 38% pay rise. The International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers said on Monday that Boeing's contract proposal that was ratified by union members includes a 38% pay rise over 4 years and a $12,000 signing bonus. Boeing's 33,000 union members will start returning to work from Wednesday after halting the company's manufacturing lines on September 13th. While the strike has reportedly cost Boeing some $50 million a day in losses, company CEO Kelly Ortberg said that we're all part of the same team. The world's first wooden satellite, developed by Japanese researchers, was launched into space on Tuesday. The palm-sized satellite, LignoSat, built by Kyoto University and housing company Sumitomo Forestry, was launched on an unmanned SpaceX rocket from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida to test whether timber can be used in space to help reduce space junk. Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency said in a social media post that the wooden satellite, measuring just 10 centimeters on each side, flew into space safely. American basketball star Michael Jordan's game-worn Chicago Bulls jersey was sold at an auction in New York on Monday for $4.68 million. Introduced as part of the colossal The Ultimate Jordan Collection auction by Sotheby's, the red jersey was worn by Michael Jordan in the 1996-1997 NBA championship season. While a Sotheby's sports specialist said that the unicorn item would sell for a minimum of $4 million in October, the jersey beat its price prediction by more than 15%. Kim Xiang, Arirang News.
The cold has become stronger all over the country. The morning temperature in Seoul today was 3 degrees Celsius, which is the lowest temperature this fall. There was also frost throughout the central parts of the country, which was 2 days earlier than last year, but 9 days later than usual. Tomorrow is Ipdong on the lunar calendar, which marks the beginning of winter. Temperatures will drop further tomorrow, bringing the winter cold. The morning temperature in Seoul will plummet to 2 degrees. Chuncheon and Daejeon will start off at 1 degree tomorrow morning, Busan 8 degrees. Daily highs will move up to 14 degrees in Seoul and Chuncheon, Daejeon 16, Busan 19 degrees. From Friday, temperatures will rise again and the weekend will see milder weather than usual. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Coming up next is our daily panel session. Do stay with us.